So my question for you is, I've
Yeah.
talked a lot about the hadith, and I'm trying to learn the science of
Good,
it, which
good.
is very, very complex.
Sure.
One of the objections this gentleman in our chat, young Muhammad, brought up to me was that
Hmm.
if you say that Aisha was not accurately able to account for her age, and there's several narrations where she describes her being either 6 and 9, one where she says, I think 7 and 9. So
Sure.
the argument is, if she wasn't able to remember that, how can you still state with confidence that she had a good memory?
Excellent. Easy question. Um, and I answered this earlier in the show, but I'll answer it again. So, when we talk about an authentic hadith, what are we authenticating? That the person said what they said at that time, right? Meaning, right now, James, if I told you that I'm 40, right, for example, right? And you were asked of my age, and you said, Uthman said he's 40, right? What you said is correct. Maybe I was looking at dog years, or I was looking at it incorrectly myself, but you're reporting what I told you was correct, right? So that is not a criticism of James. It would be a criticism of Osman, right? Yes? No? Maybe? You
Yeah,
with me?
I just didn't
All
want to
right.
interrupt. I try to,
No, no,
be
no, no, no.
polite.
I want to keep this, interactive. I like there to be interaction, right? So when you look at yourself, James, and I'm not going to ask you your age again. I don't want to, shock the people that you look so young and so on. So, if I ask you your age, how would you tell me how old you are? Right? You would either look at your passport or a birth certificate, or ask your mom or dad or grandfather or older brother, so on, because you were not conscious at the time of your birth to be able to record the age, right?
So,
But if,
so what you would
go ahead.
say is that, if I understand right, you're saying that she had a good memory, but she had
Excellent memory.
no idea how old she was when
No,
she
no, I did
gave
not say
that.
that. No, no, no.
But the only
I
reason why I say
believe.
that is because
Sure.
if it says that her sister was this much older than her at death,
Mhm.
then they had to have known their ages to a degree. So if
Sure.
if they didn't even
And
know the
again, that
birth, how can we say
sure.
the
So,
rest?
as I said, even the age of Asma radiallahu anha, the older sister, is hotly debated because these things were not important to the Arab at the time. They had no calendars. They had no, other than naming years after events, they had no way to count for years, right? Because we are looking at this from a perspective of saying, okay, 2021 and 2020 and 1980 and 1998. But imagine if we had no numbering system, right? If we had nothing like that. And the Arab didn't. So you would be relying upon whatever somebody told you. There's no way that she had no idea how old she was, but there is also a clear possibility, as the scholars have discussed in the past, that she was not exact about her age because she was not physically aware at the time of birth of what age it would be, right? As you were not, and as I was not. When I need to know my age, I ask somebody, right? I'll give you an example. Um, my name is Osman. Who named me? Right? My grandmother told me I named you. My mother told me I named you. My father told me I named you. Right? So me, I cannot go back and say which one of them named me because I was not in my senses. Right? So if I say my grandmother named me because she's the one that told me that, and it turns out that my father named me, it would be not a criticism of me because I was only going by what somebody had told me, right? So if she was told that you are about this age of age and she conveyed that, and let's say it turned out that she wasn't, it is not a criticism of her. Everything that she saw and she heard and she reported, she did accurately.
Okay. No, I understand that point. Now, when
Right?
I'm looking at the argument to make her older, if we're establishing that people really, in several cases, didn't have ideas of how old they are, I still think that you're not able to make an argument that she was 19. Your argument is
I,
really that people had no idea how old they were.
I'm not making the argument that she was 19, right? I am presenting that there is a scholarly view, and I've given the names of those scholars, and based on historic events that happened during her lifetime and other people around her age that gave those arguments as well. Now, personally, like I said, I think the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim are the strongest. Chain wise, no doubt to their strength to it, right? But again, this is not a creedal matter. This is not a moral matter. This is an issue of just putting dates together. She was at an age that was acceptable at the time, that they waited for the marriage to consummate, for her to be physically and emotionally ready as the people of that time were. Now, if you ask me what was her exact age, 6 or 7 at the time of engagement, not marriage, or 9 and so on at the time of marriage, or as other scholars have said, 14 years of age around at the time of engagement and 17 to 18 at the time of marriage, I would say, well, there's evidences this way, which is the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, and there are evidences the other way, like the historic events that she could not have reported at that age regarding the ayat or certain tafsir and so on, like the issue of the pills and so on. So I would present those arguments. I don't need to make her older or younger. Right? Doesn't really matter to me. Whatever age she was acceptable in natural state of a body being ready, of haid and menses, and physically, and a mental state and a cultural societal state. So I'm perfectly fine. But what I do like to do is to present some of the views of other scholars and some of the historical background.